he says he started prepping individually, but realized that for his family to survive, he needed a community. So he started Fortitude Ranch 10 years ago. Take a look.
I served in the Air Force on active duty as an intelligence officer. As an intelligence officer, we track threats, and the threats are actually increasing. We have powers that can make a threat, more so in the bioweapons era today. That's really a much bigger threat than nuclear war. Bad guys can design more lethal viruses. Modify H5N1, for example. When H5N1 becomes human transmissible, 1 billion may die of the virus, more will die from the collapse that results. When you're starving, you'll do what's necessary to keep you and your family alive. And a lot of people, if necessary, will kill to survive. I've been a prepper for about 30 years. I looked into survival communities, so we set up Fortitude Ranch as an organized survival community business. I've been with Fortitude Ranch. We started it up a little over a decade ago. Our staff is largely former military people, a lot of former law enforcement officers. In a collapse, when that occurs, we'll go through a lot more weapons training and defending behind our walls practice. We have now a big group to raise food, guard the compound, keep everyone alive so we can survive a long collapse. The reason we don't like to be all underground is because there's a virus going around, you could all die from the virus. You can't just hide out in a bunker. There's really no downside to prepping, and the upside is it can save your life. There's a lot of bad things that I think could happen this year, but you need to get started right away. If you're not prepared and a collapse occurs, then you're going to have to suffer the consequences, which could be death for you and your family.
Drew, you say there are over 50 scenarios where the U.S. collapses. What's on the short list?
Well, Dr. Phil, there's over 50 that we track threats, and any threat that's really bad could lead to a collapse, meaning the economy's not functioning, widespread loss of law and order. The one that's worried me the most is bioengineering. So H5N1, which is still called avian or bird flu, you shouldn't call it that anymore. Right now, if you were to catch H5N1, it's 60% lethal. So it's nothing like COVID-19. And when that happens, no one's going to work. There's not going to be any food production or delivery. People will start starving. They're going to start looting and stealing to survive, and that occurs. But it's not just bioengineering. Our electric system is a disaster waiting to happen. It's the Achilles heel of the United States, and all our enemies know it. Artificial intelligence. I mean, Elon Musk and folks like that, every day they're talking about the artificial intelligence threat. We have municipal water systems, and we're highly vulnerable to a collapse, and the government is doing absolutely nothing to prepare for it other than protecting themselves, or to even warn people that, hey, you need to get prepared. Our government is grossly irresponsible.
So what do you think people should do about this?
One, I would encourage your government to require them to harden the electric grid. They've had decades to do it, haven't yet. There was an effort in Texas last year to get the Texas grid hardened. Those introduced, Speaker got it killed. His former chief of staff was a lobbyist for the utility industry. This happens over and over again. Legislators' top priority is getting reelected, not working to prepare us to survive a disaster. And I'm in favor of term limits as a result. We need to stop elected officials focusing on re-election, should come in for one term, do the job of protecting us, and get out of office. That's one change I would like to see made.
One of my theories is that we have people in charge of solving problems that aren't really interested in solving the problem, because they solve the problem, then they're out of a job.
North Korea today could take down the U.S. electric grid. All they need is one long-range ICBM. They've got them. Nuclear weapon does blasts, thermal radiation. These were designed to have maximum EMP output. So a small yield weapon of North Korea going off basically anywhere over the U.S. at a wide range in latitudes, doesn't have to be accurate, can take down our electric grid for at least a year, possibly several years. We have 7 now operating in the U.S. and more coming now. We're franchising now to open up more rapidly. If there's a pandemic, people aren't going to go to nuclear reactors to turn them off, and you don't just turn the key, as you know. That water has to keep flowing. They have a lot of people to shut them down. So if people aren't coming in a pandemic to a nuclear reactor, there's a good chance you're going to have nuclear reactors that have accidents, blow up, release radiation. So underground facilities for radiation shielding are worthwhile. That's one they just showed on the video behind you. That's an underground facility.
And you're concerned about vulnerability of living in there, and you say these underground bunkers like Landon is invested in fact, have great vulnerability. Why?
So you have to defend on the surface. If you don't defend on the surface, people can discover you underground, and you've got to have air vents. They'll cover up your air vents. You know, if you've got windmills and solar panels, they're on the surface. You have to be on the surface to protect your facility from a marauder group, or you won't have one.
Okay, so somebody can come in, cut off the air supply, trap them down there, and suffocate them, and then go in and take all their supplies.
Correct. But they don't have to do that. They can defend on the surface. That's what you should do.
So you got to come out
Yes, sir.
and fight them off.
Correct.
Yeah. Is this affordable for the average American?
Yes, sir, it is. So we're dual purpose. Our motto is prepare for the worst, enjoy the present. So in good times, you can come to Fortitude Ranch as a member and vacation there. But in bad times, we turn into a survival community. But the cost is affordable because, number one, our facilities are not, deep underground ICBM silos. Those are very expensive. We don't have a lot of fancy equipment, and our rooms are not. It's not fancy rooms. We're pretty rustic. So for a couple $1,000s down payment, and then a couple $1,000s a year, depending on your family size going forward, you can afford to be a member. So that's one of the ways we tried to design this to be affordable for the middle class.
Okay, I want to ask you all another question. So grab your voting device again, and the first question is: how much food do you have stored? 2 days worth, a week's worth, a month's worth, 3 to 6 months worth, or 1 year or more's worth of food? Results are in. So 7.3 have 2 days worth, 32.5% of you have a week's worth, 38.5 have a month's worth of food, 18.4% have 3 to 6 months worth of food, and 3.4 have a year's worth of food. So that's interesting.